I'm here with Dr. Stewart Davies, Chief Executive Officer of Augean plc. Welcome, Stewart.
Thank you.
How has your strategy developed over the past few years to address new markets?
So back in 2010, the Augean board approved 4 strategic opportunities, and each of those are being delivered and are coming through now in the numbers. They are, in brief, radioactives, offshore, mineral extraction, and energy recovery. And just running through those, in radioactives, the key breakthrough there was the successful planning application to handle low-level radioactive waste at our East North Hants facility that was obtained last year, but also obtaining a key supply chain relationship up in the North Sea, and that allows us to access naturally occurring radioactive materials. The second area is our offshore activity, and here we invested back in 2010 in a unique thermal desorption facility up at our Port Clarence Waste Recovery Park. And also, very importantly, we've acquired a majority stake in Augean North Sea Services. Third area is around minerals extraction, and here through a royalties arrangement with a local quarrying company, we are gaining the value from sand and limestone quarried from Cook's Hole. And then finally, in energy recovery, we have gas recovery at our landfill sites, and that's used to generate electricity. And we also, through thermal, biological and chemical processes, recover oil from waste. Now, running through the impact of those on revenue, radioactives is about 2 million per annum, offshore about 8 million, minerals about 0.2, and energy about 0.5. So you can see they're coming through in the numbers. We're also, at the same time as focusing on those 4 opportunities, making sure that we're constantly aligned with this very dynamically changing market that's being changed by EU directives, but also, as is evidenced in the recent publication of the Hazardous Waste National Policy Statement back in June 2013, that's identifying the areas that are deemed to be strategic as part of the UK's infrastructure. It identifies 7 areas, and Augean has existing positions, assets and planning permissions in 5 of those 7 areas. And then we're also, in terms of that dynamic market, anticipating and staying ahead of changes in the hazardous landfill market. We're doing that by investing in remediation facilities, allowing us to process soils and air pollution control residues before they go to landfill.
These new markets are providing good growth opportunities, but there are other areas that are challenging and highly competitive. How are you combating that?
Of course, there is an intense focus on underperforming elements of the business because we're driven by shareholder value. We've made some decisions over the last year or so in terms of exiting sites where there's not been the opportunity to get the right margins. And we're, of course, working hard to drive up operating margins across the business. And one of the areas that we're looking at intensely now is the more commoditized part of the hazardous waste market, where there is little opportunity for us to influence the market, and we may well look at shrinking back in that area. And then the business has taken, again, some tough decisions in the first half of this year in terms of reducing overheads, particularly focused on the sales and technical area, where there was perhaps an over-expansion of resource expecting a large growth in the general hazardous waste market. So we pulled that back in to make overhead savings.
You've managed to obtain permits for the disposal of low-level radioactive waste. What does this mean for the market and for your business?
Decommissioning of redundant nuclear assets is clearly a priority for the UK government as it pursues its energy strategy, and responsible for that is the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority. One of the key challenges they've got is opening up the supply chain for disposal of large volumes of low-activity radioactive waste, which is called LLW. And there's about 3 million tonnes of that in the inventory on the nuclear estate. So the planning permission we obtained last year allows Augean to dispose of this low-activity radioactive material on our East North Hants facility. And what we do is we put it into highly engineered landfill cells that are designed for a broad range of hazardous wastes to contain those wastes for over 100 years. And just to put this material into context, the definition of low-activity radioactive waste is less than 200 becquerels per gram, which in layman's terms means a dosage of less than 1% of what we get from walking about in the general environment. So I say we put it in those highly engineered landfill cells. We've been taking the material progressively from last May 2012, and that has effectively made us part of the supply chain for the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority. And they are now able to ramp up those volumes, and we're estimating that they'll be getting to 5,000 tonnes a year to stay on their programme.
While low-level waste is a clear driver of value, what other areas do you think investors should concentrate on when looking at Augean?
Just picking up on low-level waste, the previous question was all about the nuclear estate, but what our licence allows us to do is to take this low-level radioactive material also from other sources, and very importantly, naturally occurring radioactive material that arises from drilling activities in the North Sea is an important market for us that, again, we've opened up and have been bringing materials in over the last year, very much similar volumes to that from the nuclear estate. So that's certainly one to watch. The second area I would highlight is around the processing of air pollution control residues. These arise from incinerators and energy from waste plants. And if you think about that market and the direction that the government policy is going, we estimate that market will double over the next 5 years. The third area is back to the North Sea, where we are anticipating expanding in a focused way our services to that sector, and indeed anticipating the oncoming decommissioning programme that will kick in at some stage, or indeed ramp up at some stage in the North Sea. And then finally, we anticipate being able to expand our industrial services. This is where we're actually working on the customer's premises, handling waste from the moment it's produced and adding value all the way through.
Stewart, although you've been CEO for just a few weeks now, I was wondering if you could share some of your initial impressions of the group.
Sure. I guess three areas for me. Great people. It's absolutely critical in the hazardous waste sector that we've got people with the right technical expertise to make sure that we can assure the handling of waste right from arisings with the customer through to disposal. And those people in Augean are working alongside the customer. They're working in our operational sites and driving ever higher levels of compliance and safety. And then we've got technical experts. We have the only UCAS accredited laboratory in the waste industry. And we've got the boffins who are constantly innovating and finding new solutions for this very dynamic market. The second area would be around our assets. I think we've got great assets and we're developing those continually in Augean. And one of the key things to understand is how planning permissions and permitting are essential. They're barriers to entry and they're essential to our licence to operate. And as I ran through earlier, we've got 5 out of the 7 key infrastructure needs from that hazardous waste national policy statement in our hand in Augean. And then finally, it would be around great customers. I'm a great believer that having customers who are at the top of their game, are very demanding, is a great way to improve the company. So I've been delighted to see all those 3 things while I've been with Augean.
Stewart, thanks very much for talking to us today.
Thank you.